Pues chavales, otro viernes más, pero esta vez con el Calling All Devs. Que pues en esta ocasión nos van a hablar de... Se llama Core Gameplay Update y nos van a hablar de pues mecánicas que están por llegar, ¿no? Y vamos a ver qué se cuece. La verdad tengo muchas ganas. Muchas ganas. Dentro asunto.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Calling All Devs, our series where we take questions from you, the Star Citizen backer, and pose them directly to our developers. On this week's show, we are talking all things gameplay pillar with our gameplay pillar director, Mr. Richard Tyrer. Richard, how you doing, man?
Hello, I'm doing very well.
We got a lot of things to cover today. So the gameplay, we don't need to go into what the gameplay pillar is and everything, but suffice to say that a lot of the core elements that make up Squadron 42 and Star Citizen come from the gameplay pillar, the kind of day-to-day activities of the player.
Essentially, the core gameplay pillar is anything that's character-related or actor-related, and covers a lot of mixed features such as like fire or physical damage, and radar and scanning for both ships and on FPS. So if you look at like the two main feature pillars, you have obviously the vehicle pillar, and then there's a core gameplay pillar, and we kind of coordinate to create, if we're not doing it, they're doing it, and if they're not doing it, we're doing it, kind of thing.
Bueno, nos está comentando un poquito que, bueno, que es un... que por un lado estaría los pilares del Game Pillar y por otro lado estaría el Vehicle Pillar, ¿no? Que es el pilar de vehículos. Y que entre los dos, o sea, Richard Tyler es un Game Director, ¿no? Entonces se encargarían de lo que es el tema del actor, del escaneo, del fuego. O sea, de lo que no se encargan ellos, se encarga el equipo el equipo de vehículos, ¿no? Y que entre los dos se consideran que no es que ellos hagan todo, pero son las piezas fundamentales del desarrollo. Tanto para el Escuadrón 42 como para el Star Citizen.
That's the best way to describe it.
Much better than my way, anyway. So today we're talking about some of the features that are in development under your pillar right now. Some are coming in the upcoming Alpha 3.15. Some will be coming a little bit later, as they're ready. Let's start off with the ones that people are perhaps most familiar with and are asking about. Let's start off with player healing.
Dice que hoy vamos a hablar de las mecánicas que están por llegar a la 3.15, que están relacionadas con tu pilar, ¿no? Lo dice Discolando. Y además con mecánicas que están por llegar en el futuro. Y que vamos a hablar ahora de algo que los jugadores están preguntando, que es la mecánica de curación.
What can you tell us about where we're at, how we're doing, and what we can expect in the upcoming Alpha 3.15?
So player healing is kind of the next iteration of what we classified as actor status. So actor status T0, when we released around CitizenCon, probably about a year ago now. I think it was like 3.9, around about that. But that kind of covered the first iterations of the statuses that the player covers, such as like eating, drinking, hypothermia.
Claro, está diciendo que la curación del jugador sería el siguiente paso en el estado de actor, en el actor status, en el sistema de estado de actor, que al principio pues empezaron con que tuviese que pues se pudiese pues eso tuviese que comer, lo que conocemos ahora del personaje, ¿no?
All of those things. So this is the next iteration of that, which covers essentially injuries. So we already have in the game right now the player has global health. So when you look on your HUD, you have the little first aid symbol, and it says, it's your global health from 0 to 100. Probably what people, some old backers probably will remember, is that we also have the little man, and the little man comprises up of the different body parts on you. So you've got your arms, you've got your legs, you've got your core and your head, and they are actually individual pools of health. But they used to be that, and that's what I say about some of the old backers, is that used to be the only thing that you could see. You didn't have the global health. We introduced the global health widget when we released Active Status C0. But the way it works under the hood is that your limbs take damage, And so say I get shot in the arm, and let's say I lose 5 health points in the arm. What happens under the hood is it goes, okay, let's move 5 health points from the arm, and then it removes 5 health points from the global health. And it was always doing this. You just
Claro, está comentando de que ahora mismo el sistema que hay es que el cuerpo está dividido en partes, el minicuerpo que aparece pues aquí en pequeñito, ¿no? En la pantalla. Y pues en cabeza, pecho, piernas, brazos. Y que ahora mismo el personaje tiene salud global, ¿no? Y que realmente, pues cuando se quitan 5 puntos de vida a un brazo, pues se quitan 5 puntos de vida también a la salud global. Que eso es lo que está sucediendo ahora debajo de lo que es bueno, pues el juego, ¿no? De cómo está.
never saw it. So you only would ever die when your global health got to 0. It didn't matter that your limbs could get to 0, but it was waiting for your global health. So if I just kept shooting you in the arm, even though your arm might only have 20 health points, your global health might be 100 health points. So I keep shooting you, and your arm is now ruined, essentially, and then I could keep shooting you, and eventually you'd die. So there was always the intention that your limbs would basically have these statuses based on their own individual health, and then that would tie into this kind of the greater gameplay or the greater healing gameplay that we're talking about. So basically now what we've taken that system, and now we're starting to introduce the injuries that will apply to you when you take severe damage in your limbs. So you can have a traumatic head injury, you can have a traumatic body injury, you can have leg injuries and arm injuries. And the way...
Claro, lo que está comentando es que, bueno, lo que tenemos ahora del cuerpecillo ese, que para ver esto, para explicarlo un poquito, ¿qué coño? Vamos a sacar un puto paint, que es lo suyo, ¿no? Ya es costumbre en el canal. Para explicar un poco lo que está diciendo, ¿no? Porque si no... entonces, lo que nos viene indicando es que tenemos aquí lo que sería el cuerpo del tío, ¿vale? O sea, tenemos lo que es, bueno, la pantalla grande y todo eso, ¿vale? Y aquí estaría nuestro cuerpo, ¿no? Con el torso, las piernas, ¿vale? Y los bracitos, ¿vale? Entonces, lo que nos indica es que ahora recibimos daño, ¿vale? Y esto, pues, afecta a lo que sería el porcentaje total del personaje, ¿no? El porcentaje entero. Con la nueva mecánica de curación, en principio, lo que debería suceder es que... bueno, lo que sucede es que te pueden estar pegando constantemente al brazo, ¿no? Hasta que quede inservible. Y bueno, pues que luego si sigue recibiendo daño puedes llegar a morir, ¿no? Pero que en principio puedes tener un brazo jodido y insensible y no necesariamente morir, ¿no? Entonces, lo que van a añadir ahora con el healing es traumas. Traumas, bueno, sí, no sé si estáis familiarizados con Tarkov, pero bueno, como que se ven las partes dañadas y tal, y el sistema de curación de Tarkov está bastante guapo, me gustaría que metieran algo similar en el Star Citizen. Y diferentes estados de heridas, ¿no? Diferentes tipos de daños a lo que son las partes del cuerpo. Vamos a ver qué más nos cuentan.
The way it kind of works is that we're still using the health system, but we're kind of tracking this invisible number behind the number in the back end, which is kind of like body limb wear. So essentially, imagine if I keep shooting in the arm, because we were talking about the arm, and you might lose all your health, and that's fine. If you then med pen it up and heal your arm back up as we do now, if you haven't given them a lot of time, so you're not taking care of yourself, you keep getting shot on the arm, and you keep getting shot on the arm, basically that wear is going to keep building and building and building until you get essentially a broken arm. And we have 3 tiers or severities of injury. Tier 1 or severity 1 is the highest, that's the worst. Then we've got tier 2 and then tier 3.
Vale, está comentando de que si por ejemplo nosotros recibimos daño en un brazo y le metemos un metén para curarlo, seguiríamos recibiendo daño y más daño. Si seguimos recibiendo desgaste en ese brazo, al final se acabaría por producir una rotura. Y dice que tienen como 3 tiers de tipos de daño, siendo el tier 1 el daño más severo.
So essentially, when you get a tier 3 injury, it's basically going, hey, now you're going to start suffering consequences of that injury. And you can't just get a med pen and go, cool, I'm just going to use my med pen. Your med pen will heal your limb health back up to full health. But the injuries on your arm will give you different effects at different statuses. And that...
Claro, esto es importante porque dice que cuando nosotros ahora con el nuevo sistema de medicina nos chutemos un medpen, efectivamente restauraremos la vida del brazo, ¿no? Pero tendremos heridas que produzcan diferentes efectos.
And that's why I'm saying it's the next iteration of active status.
Right.
As you start to suffer from dehydration, as you start to suffer from hunger, or your sort of hyperthermia or hypothermia, you start to undergo these different states. So your stamina, you can't run as far, you can't sprint as long. We have lowered max health, and we have all the different eyeball effects that start to come on, whether there's the blood vision or whether it's the double vision and things like that. So or whether when you're cold, you start to shiver, or if you're under a severe pressure. So what we have all these different statuses that trigger these internal body reactions to you suffering these injuries. So with the upcoming healing status, what we're doing is that you can then suffer this injury. Now, so let's say you've suffered an injury, and let's say it's a severity 3 or tier 3. So that's the lowest severe injury. So let's say if your broken arm, it's like a fracture. So make sure you've got a hairline fracture in your arm. So you can still use your arm, you can still do it, but maybe now you can't hold your gun as firm, so you've got a bit more weapon sweat.
Claro, está diciendo que en el caso de que, en el caso de que no sé, bueno, está diciendo de que tienen una cantidad de efectos ya diseñados en el personaje, ¿no? De si tenemos frío, tenemos hambre, nos morimos o sea, por hipotermia, por calor, sofocación, etcétera. Ya tenemos dobles visiones, efectos diferentes al personaje, ¿no? Entonces, lo que quieren añadir, pues es como también efectos a los diferentes tipos de heridas. En este caso, si tenemos una herida de tier 3, aunque nos metemos un medpen y curamos el brazo, ¿no? Pues si estamos sujetando un rifle, no lo sujetaremos de manera adecuada.
Way, and so on and so forth. So you start to notice it, thinking, okay, I've got this injury. Now my little man is showing my arm is red, and and it's showing I've got a tier 3. And it's like, okay, I need to go back to a medical facility to remove this injury. There's no way for you to remove the injuries out on the field. You have that injury, you have to then go and get it sorted. So you can then go back to a medical facility, and your medical facility, there are different classifications of the medical.
Bueno, está diciendo una cosa interesante, y es que dice que ahora no habrá ninguna manera posible de en el campo remover las heridas. Están hablando, o sea, curarte las heridas. No se trata de la salud del miembro, sino que tengas una herida en este caso. Y dice pues que tendrás que ir a una instalación médica, ¿no?
Facilities. We have tier 1, 2 and 3. So
y además en las diferentes instalaciones tenemos tier 1, tier 2 y tier 3 también.
Hospital or a physical location is going to be what are classified as a tier 1 facility. That's the best facilities you can get. So they will always be able to hear everything out. And you can see where I'm going here. Right. Tier 2 is the second, and 3rd is the worst. And the way that we're tiering it up is that tier 3 can heal anything that is any injuries that are tier 3. Tier 2 can heal any tier 2s, and tier 1 can heal tier 1 and below. By the way, I always wanted it the other way around, but we'd already committed to the tiering, so I was like, okay, fine, that's fine.
I could do a whole segment someday on the way that we tier things.
Bueno, están hablando de que, bueno, tier 1, tier 2 y tier 3 en los hospitales se correspondería con o sea, tendríamos el primero, tendríamos el tier 1, o sea, tendríamos el tier máximo en los hospitales. Y luego pues hay tier 2, tier 3, que se correspondería con tier 2 de herida, tier 3 de herida. Y está indicando de que los tiers superiores de instalación médica son capaces de curar también los inferiores. Y que bueno, están comentando de que a la hora de nombrar a los tiers y tal, que se han decidido nombrar así, que el tier 1 sea el más grave y etcétera.
In all aspects of our development.
Exactly. So essentially what we have this injury. So you've got this injury, and it's affecting how your character plays the game. It's affecting the effectiveness of your character. Whether that's in combat, whether that's, well, in combat.
A ver, un momentito que me he perdido ahí.
Injury, and it's affecting how your character plays the game. It's affecting the effectiveness of your character, whether that's in combat, whether that's, well, in combat, or whether that's in mining, or, how much you can carry or how much you can sprint.
Claro, dice que las heridas van a afectar a cómo se comporta el personaje en el juego. No importa que si estás mirando, si estás haciendo combate, si estás haciendo un sprint.
All the different, whether you can see, how well you can see, all of these different things. So
o cómo de bien eres capaz de ver.
If you've got a traumatic head injury, for example, you might start to suffer double vision. Your stun resistance won't be as high. So if you get hit from force reactions, you'll fall over easier. Things like that.
Claro, está diciendo de que, por ejemplo, tu resistencia al aturdimiento, si tienes un trauma craneal, pues tu resistencia al aturdimiento será peor, tendrás peor equilibrio al recibir los impactos de las reacciones de fuerza, ¿no? De, pues eso, cuando vayamos a una nave, etcétera y tal. Que si, pues también podremos tener efectos de visión borrosa, visión doble.
So what we're introducing is we have this severity, and then when you get to the tier 1 severities, that's where you've taken significant amounts of damage. You know, you've gone down, you've been revived, all of that kind of thing, and you're in a situation where, like tier 1, you might have like a multiple fractured arm where you can't use your arms anymore. You might be able to use your arms for like that one moment, like if it's your life or death dependent on, like, look, I need to get over that wall and I'm just gonna do it. Great, but you're not going to be able to like climb a 20-meter ladder. So if you're
Claro, está diciendo de que luego pues estaría la severidad de tier 1. La gravedad de tier 1, que sería pues que tienes el brazo totalmente inservible, que está todo partido, tiene fracturas y que quizás pues seas capaz de hacer una acción en un estado de gravedad en plan de...
facilities at all of the major landing zones. We want to have clinics at truck stops and things like that. So essentially you're going around and choosing where you want to respawn. And then obviously that ties in later down the road.
Claro, aparte de que está comentando de que a la hora de nosotros querer responder en un hospital, podemos seleccionar la ubicación donde queremos hacerlo, ¿no? Si queremos hacerlo en New Abbott, en Horizon.
In terms of like Death of a Spaceman, DNA integrity, which we've talked about previously, but
Un
I won't
momento.
and choosing where you want to respawn. And then obviously that ties in later down the road in terms of like Death of a Spaceman, DNA integrity, which we've...
Claro, que eso luego se atará, ¿no? Se vinculará mucho más tarde en el tema de la clonación y demás, de la carta que hablaba sobre la muerte de un hombre en del espacio y demás.
we've talked about previously, but I won't go into too much detail on that. But that covers the detail that I've talked about here is what's coming in the first iteration of healing and the healing gameplay.
In just the T1 that comes in Alpha 315.
Correct.
All right, so that's...
Claro, y esto sería, lo que está comentando aquí sería lo que viene en la 3.15. Todo lo que he hablado ahora es lo que viene en la 3.15.
player healing. We've got other features that are under your gameplay pillar right now. We've got FPS radar. We've got hacking. We've got personal inventory. Where do we go next? What can you tell us?
Cool. So obviously, I think healing was a complex feature. So there was lots of things that are going on there. I know that the community is interested to hear where we're at with that. So I think it's good to get that out there so people can have the say. I think in terms of inventory, obviously we've talked about inventory already a lot. What we're trying to aim for to go alongside healing is that, you know, you leave your stuff behind. Essentially, we won't be having this infinite bag of holding that you do right now with the PMA. We want to remove.
Claro, de lo que es el inventario ya nos han hablado ampliamente, ¿no? En otra ocasión. Y lo que nos comentaba, o sea, lo que nos comenta es de que la idea del inventario en principio es que si te mueres, pues dejes tu inventario atrás, o sea, que lo pierdas, ¿no? Lo que llevas encima, que no tengamos inventario infinito.
Move the PMA so that you're using the inner thought system that we're implementing that you've already probably seen using if you've used the Grinrock and going in and bringing up your interface.
Claro, que está hablando de que ya vimos ese sistema, ¿no? Si abrimos si usamos el Greycat Rock, el rock de minería, ¿no? Pues podemos ver de qué va el asunto.
So essentially, the headline situation with healing is that we're going to local inventory. So you'll only have access to the things that you've put into the inventory at a landing zone. If you go into a ship, you'll only have access to the things that are inside that ship based off the inventory. It's still accessed by location, so you have to be in that location, then you can access that inventory. But the fundamental headline is if you're outside on a planet, you only have access to the things that you're carrying, that are things that are in your pockets, or that are things that are in your backpack, and that's it. So, and when you die or go to the new downed state, you will obviously leave your items there if you go and respawn back at a hospital. So,
claro, está comentando de que en el caso de... lo que vamos a ver es que si estamos en un planeta, en esencia, ¿no? Si estamos en un planeta con nuestra nave y nuestro personaje, solo vamos a tener acceso a las cosas que hayamos llevado en ese momento, que tengamos en la nave. Y en caso de que pasemos al down state, ¿no? Al estado ese de coma, pues si hacemos respawn, dejaremos ahí nuestras cosas.
So that's really the crux of healing. Obviously, the people are already familiar with the the system itself. And the biggest thing is obviously the removal of the PMA. You'll be able to move your items directly on to your character with the inner thought system, and also will be, as part of that release, will be coming with the asset manager. So you'll have a mobiGlas app that'll be able to show you all of where your stuff is. So you'll be like, okay, where did I leave the Gladius or my Gladius, or where was that armor or this gun? And you'll be able to go and find them and go, okay, that was an Area 18, okay, that's a plot.
Vale, aquí está diciendo una cosa importante, es que claro, a la hora de nosotros acceder al inventario de las cosas, ya nos está indicando de que, bueno, vamos a tener un manager, o sea, un app manager en lo que es el mobiGlas, donde vamos a poder ver dónde tenemos la ubicación de todos los objetos. Pero la ubicación no significa acceso. O sea, es decir, puede que tengamos una armadura en área 18, otra pieza en otro lado. O sea que lo que nos está indicando un poco es que dependiendo de la localización en la que estemos, vamos a tener determinados objetos que hayamos adquirido, claro.
Or wherever. So that's kind of healing in a nutshell. We've talked a lot about the intricacies of healing before, but that kind of covers the small slice of it.
Incluso también lo comentaba para las naves, ¿eh? O sea, para saber dónde están las cosas. O sea que se pone interesante la cosa.
The other two, in terms of FPS radar and scanning and hacking, so I'll cover FPS radar and scanning first. So FPS radar and scanning, we are exactly the same as the ship scanning now, or the ship radar and scanning. So we worked with VTT, and myself and my team, we designed the radar and scanning system for both ships and for FPS. We wanted to make it sure that it was, it's using the same systems, it has the same promises and the same premise, so that if you have a really large signature, it's dampening all the other signatures. So I always give the example, which is like, I'm in the shower and my wife's shouting to me. I'm like, I can't hear you because all I can hear is the shower, but she can hear me. Right. She can clearly hear me responding back, and she's responding. I'm like, but I can't hear you. So that's what we've implemented as part of it, so that we have this gameplay where you can the cause and effect. So on the FPS side, you'll be able to.
Claro, están hablando del efecto de que están hablando del radar y el escaneo en FPS, que será similar al escaneo que vamos a tener en las naves ahora para la 314. Y con esa también oclusión de señal por estar al lado de señales más fuertes y demás. Está poniendo el ejemplo de en caso de una ducha, ¿no? Pues que tú estés en la ducha pues y a ti te hablan desde fuera de la ducha, tú no vas a escuchar, pero la persona desde fuera, no sé si es al revés. La persona que está en la ducha tú no lo vas a oír, pero tú, la persona que está fuera, sí. O sea, hablaba de eso, ¿no? De que, bueno, que las señales se van a obstruir entre ellas y demás, como lo van a hacer con las naves.
To go in and turn on a generator and maybe hide with that noise. Maybe you can't hear yourself, your emission is low, but maybe they can still find you or whatever. So there's definitely some signature gameplay that'll be introduced on the FPS. It's definitely not supposed to be intended to be bat vision. It's not, it's not like you just go in and turn it on and then you have it on forever. When you do a ping, there will be consequences. People will be notified that they have been pinged, and you flare up all your signatures. So, when you do a ping, what you're actually saying is, I'm shouting into the dark, but I'm giving a ping that they have been pinged. It's supposed to be intended to be bat vision. Yes side, you'll be able to go in and turn on a generator and maybe hide with that noise. Maybe you can't hear yourself, your emission is low, but maybe they can still find you or whatever. So there's definitely some signature gameplay that'll be introduced on the FPS. It's definitely not supposed to be intended to be bat vision. It's not, it's not like you just go in and turn it on and then you have it on forever.
Claro, lo que nos está comentando es que, bueno, parece estar bastante relacionado con el ruido, diciendo de que si tú estás al lado de un generador que está haciendo ruido, pues no sería más, o sea, sería más difícil encontrarte. Comenta de que no va a ser algo que esté permanentemente activo, que tú lo activas y ya está y de repente lo tienes, sino que vas a tener que tirar un pulso, y a la hora de tirar ese pulso pues la gente sabe, o sea, va a darse cuenta de que ha recibido un ping, lo va a saber y vas a ser un faro.
When you do a ping, there will be consequences. People will be notified that they have been pinged, and you flare up all your signatures. So, when you do a ping, what you're actually saying is, I'm shouting into the dark, but I'm giving away my own location. So there's a bit of cat and mouse there, where it's like, okay, I'm here by myself. Do I want to give away my location, or do I want to go, no, actually, I'm in a position here where I can flee. I'm going to see if there's anybody in there first, and I'll ping out, there's 5 guys or whoever, I'm getting out of Dodge. Whereas sometimes you might do it and you're like, I haven't seen anybody because somebody's maybe hiding. Maybe they've turned off all of their, turned off a flashlight. They're not using their guns.
Right.
The one thing to note about the differences between FPS and ships, was a highlight, is that ships passively detect all signatures. So the EM, electromagnetic, IR, infrared, and CS, which is cross-section. Those are the 3 that it passively detects. Cross-section is like visual cross-section. On the FPS side of things, it only passively detects sound. So sound replaces cross-section. And then EMR is the same. And you can only ping for EMIR and DB. So your radar, when you're just passively walking around, only looks for sound. So if somebody, fired off, threw a grenade, used their weapon, is running, it might pick it up, and you'd be like, oh, there's somebody in that direction. But when you ping, you're looking for all of the signatures, and that's when you're giving yourself away, and that side of things. And then the scanning side of things is pretty much identical to the ship side of things. You bring up a scan mode, you can scan that person, find out all the different information about.
Claro, está comentando de que a la hora de nosotros ver lo que es el radar, en el caso de las naves es permanente y detectamos las naves que están en cercanía, el radar pasivo. En el caso del radar a pie, lo que detectará será sonidos y bueno, pues una persona corriendo, lanzar una granada, un disparo, eso se escuchará y se verá detectado en el radar. Y luego pues tendremos el ping, que le permitirá pues es el resto de señales como cuando hacemos ping en la nave. Y además también podemos hacer el escáner activo, como hacemos ahora con las naves, de que le damos ahí la información para que busque pues que lleva a bordo, carga, tal y cual. Pues eso lo vamos a poder hacer también con los jugadores y ver lo que lleva.
Out of them, what they're carrying, what's their active status, what's their org, do they have a criminal record, because you can run their name, and
¿Cuál es su organización? ¿Tiene un récord criminal? ¿Cuál es su estado?
so forth. So we have that kind of gameplay alongside, so you can correctly ID someone if you're bounty hunting, or so on and so forth. And then with hacking is almost a standalone encapsulated feature. So what we have is we'll be basically repurposing the hacking chips that we have right now. So the hacking chips will still be around. You'll have a hacking chip. You'll need to use that. And the way we're working with the environment team right now to go through all the locations is where you can hack something in. It's essentially you're going and using the maintenance access. So let's say you come to a PC or a ship or whatever. You're plugging into the maintenance access where somebody would come in and go, okay, I'm an IT administrator. I need to get into the system. So they have a skeleton key, should we say. They're putting it in and they're helping fix the problems. You've obviously got an illegal skeleton key, essentially. You're then plugging it in, and then that brings the hacking mini game up on your visor, where you essentially have to manipulate the 3D board to avoid the AI and collect basically fragments of the passcode that you're trying to find. And then when you find these passcodes, you can then put them in, and then that gives you access to whatever that is, whether that's opening a door, a terminal, terminal access, power access, elevators, whatever the content guys decide they want to do. But essentially that's the premise behind it, and we have a scaling difficulty across hacking. So
claro, está comentando que las tarjetas y tal, que se ha hecho como... Se ha rehecho un poco como lo que es la forma de hacer las cosas, que se supone que vas a ir a un panel de mantenimiento, ¿no? Como si fuera pues de un técnico que tiene que hacer un mantenimiento de la instalación y demás, y a la hora de acceder vas a enfrentarte a un minijuego que consiste en tratar de luchar contra la IA para tratar de reunir piezas que te faciliten una clave que luego podrás utilizar para poder acceder a poder tener acceso a pues sistemas de energía o sistemas de lo que sea, ¿no? De una nave, una puerta, etcétera.
We have versions without AI where it's just simple and you can just do it yourself. Then we have versions that are time limited with multiple AI. The board's much more complex.
Claro, dice que tienen versiones de dificultad también en el hackeo, que sería pues una versión muy sencilla, que una versión fácil, ¿no? Luego versiones más complicadas en la que incluso tendrías que enfrentarte a dos IA con...
And the premise is that a manufacturer in the world has created this 3D program to help people hack without actually having to script or program. So that's kind of where we're at with hacking, and that's obviously
Aparte de que dice que bueno que lo que nos aparecerá va a ser una imagen en 3 dimensiones en lo que es el visor del casco, desde la que podemos trabajar haciendo ese tipo de hackeo, ¿no?
will slot into some of the FPS features to create some of the more interesting FPS missions that the guys are working on in the background.
Gotcha. So that's a lot of stuff coming from the gameplay pillar right now, and of course I do.
Y bueno, está comentando que pues para todas estas cosas que del hackeo y tal, pues habrá misiones que están diseñando, ¿no? Para utilizar estos sistemas en el juego.
Want to reiterate that player healing and personal inventory are on their way for Alpha 3.15. We'll be covering those more in depth in ISC next quarter. Hacking we will also cover as it gets closer to its implementation. It could be 3.15, it could be whatever. It's when things are ready. And then FPS radar, the same boat. When it's ready, when all the resources are ticked and it's good to go, same deal there.
Yep.
It definitely sounds like a lot of what you said today. It sounds like it's dangerous to go along, or it's dangerous to go alone. Bring friends.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, that is.
Claro, está diciendo, descolando con respecto a lo que es el hackeo y lo que es. Bueno, que son mecánicas que, bueno, que habrá que ver como. Si, y refiriéndose al hackeo y al escaneo en primera persona. Que es, a ver si bueno, si dan tiempo de que salgan a la 3.15, si están listas para ahí, indicando que bueno, parece ser que lo que tiene más buena pinta es que todo el inventario personal y el tema de la curación, que eso sí que va a salir a la 3.15. Y que también dice que pues ha llegado el momento de no ir solo, ¿no? Que ir solo es peligroso.
We're pushing the game towards what Chris has always had in his head, that vision of that game. Anything that we add is in line with what Chris wants to add to the game. I mean, all of these features have been prioritized by Chris to add to the game. And, space is scary. It's dangerous. You're exploring the...
Claro, dice que estamos empujando el juego para plasmar las ideas que tiene Chris en su cabeza y dice, el espacio es peligroso, ¿no?
These unknown planets or known planets, but, if you just went to Africa, or you went to a North Arctic expedition, or you were going to go on the Amazon, or anywhere that is not just your familiar surroundings, you're going to have to prepare for those environments. So is it going to be hot, is it going to be arid, is there going to be bugs, and we're going to have to take tablets, or, do I need certain clothing to help me? And just as you're going on an expedition on just Earth, we're talking about, going to all these different planets, these different moons, and all these different,
Claro, dice que está poniendo el ejemplo de que si nosotros nos vamos al Polo Norte, o nos vamos a África, o nos vamos al Amazonas, pues que vamos a tener que prepararnos para el viaje, para un entorno que igual no estamos familiarizados con él, ¿no? Llevar ropa adecuada, si va a haber insectos, si va a haber, qué es lo que va a haber, ¿no? Y entonces, pues, pone el ejemplo que todavía va más allá, ¿no? Si lo que estamos planteándonos es ir a una luna desconocida o un planeta desconocido.
Cave expeditions, and you need to, as part of that gameplay loop, you need to understand, you're only going to have the things that you take with you.
Que además dice que es parte del loop del juego, ¿no? Que vamos a tener solo encima las cosas que... O sea, vamos a llevar solo las cosas que vayamos a necesitar para esa empresa, ¿no? Para esa expedición que vayamos a hacer.
And so it's up to you. And also, when you store stuff in your ship, if your ship blows up, those are the things that you're going to potentially lose on that ship. So, you're going to have meaningful decisions, and then those decisions will have consequences. And that will create a feeling that you are, more immersive, exploring this universe, rather than just like, oh, I'm in the bottom of a cave, I'll just bring up my PMA, and I have access to whatever I bought, thousands of it, which is not, it like playing a game with cheats on. It diminishes what you're trying to achieve and the fun that you're trying to have, because the challenge is there for you to overcome.
Right.
So yeah, it's good to start getting some of those gameplay loops in there.
All right, so that's a lot of things to look forward to. We, of course, are still pushing hard on Alpha 3.14. Keep your eyes and ears open to the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website while ISC is on hiatus for updates about that. Rich, thank you for taking the time to be here on the show.
No worries.
We'll see you. We'll see you next quarter for the ISC segments on all of these. So take care, man.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Está, bueno, al final ha dicho que lo que tiene sentido pues es que efectivamente tengas que tomar decisiones y que esas decisiones que tomes tengan consecuencias y que tengas pues una serie de recursos limitados, no que abras el inventario y tengas recursos infinitos, no que tener recursos limitados es lo que plantea el reto pues de realizar determinada experiencia, de vivir determinada experiencia y lo que ayuda o genera la inmersión, ¿no? Hombre, la verdad, yo viendo un poquito así el tema, el gameplay médico tiene bastante buena pinta. Supongo que, acordaros de que decía Todd Papi, de que estaban planteando el meter un tier más en la medicina. Y bueno, de momento lo que tenemos es lo que hay y lo que vamos a tener en la 3.15 y veremos a ver qué tal se desarrolla, ¿no? Y no sé, ¿qué os ha parecido, chavales? ¿Cómo lo veis el asunto? Buena, chiquilín. No te preocupes que tendrás tiempo de verlo mañana sin problema. A ver, voy a hacer ya el destacadillo. Hombre, ahí hay unas ganas tremendas. Está guay, pero más de lo mismo. ¿Por qué más de lo mismo, Drew? ¿Qué te pasa, tío? No, hombre, no. Está pepino ese hombre. A ver, cada vez nos desmenuzan un poquito más la medicina. Está claro que, oyes, es lo que hay, ¿no? Está claro que es lo que hay de momento. A ver que ponga aquí. Yo voy a preparar ya para que quede el destacado y ya seguimos con el directo, chicos. Ahí está. A ver si me carga. Bueno, me está cargando. Razer Crown, no acabo de llegar. ¿Podría resumir lo que se ha hablado? Acabamos de hablar del Calling All Devs, que nos explica. Nos está explicando la medicina que va a llegar en la 3.15, que será dentro de 3 meses. El inventario personal también, las cosas que van a llegar con el inventario personal. Y el tema del hackeo y del radar personal. Todo eso. Cachiná. Lo de la medicina tiene muy buena pinta, la verdad. Yo creo que va a estar interesante. Lo que pasa es que, bueno, ya sabemos que hasta que salga lo que es un poquito, pues eso, el mesh, que salga adelante el mesh y que ahí pues realmente vamos a poder tener opciones pues eso, de poder tener eh, más jugadores y por lo tanto pues más gente con la que poder interactuar.